strength and endurance for the Muslim faithful to fast for 29 to 30 days from dawn till dusk, engaged more in spiritual activities like the Taraweeh, the evening prayer, Tahajjud, night vigil, Zakat and Sadaqah charity. Some spent the last 10 days of Ramadan or even the whole month in itikaf, seclusion. Others left for Umrah, for the lesser Hajj, to circumambulate the Holy Kaaba, all to seek the mercy of Allah. On a day like this, Muslims the world over will converge on Eid grounds to mark the end of the holy month of Ramadan with a 2-unit congregational prayer.
The raising of hands to say additional takbir, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest, than the usual is part of the practices that make Eid prayers unique.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
In his sermon, the Chief Imam of Lagos, Sheikh Sulaiman Abunola, wants Nigerians to believe in the country and the President Tinubu's development agenda.
We call upon the government at all levels to provide more palliatives to alleviate the plight of our people. Do not lose hope in Allah's blessing. As people, don't let us lose hope. Let us have faith in our nation. Let us believe in our nation.
We should sustain that good behavior. Even though Ramadan is gone, as Muslims, we must show empathy to fellow Muslims, Christians, non-believers. It's not for us to judge.
For Mr. President, the kind of endurance the Muslim faithful had during the month of Ramadan should be emulated by all Nigerians and preserved for the country.
Be kind and be cheerful giver. Love our country better than any other country. That's the only one that we have. And we must continue to protect the integrity of our government and leadership. The new hope is alive, well and fine, and Nigerians will continue to be very hopeful. Without hope, there's no salvation. Without hope, there's no development. Without hope, there's no life.
Fasting during the holy month of Ramadan is the fourth pillar of Islam. Adidoja Salamadini, TVC News, Lagos.
Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has called on Nigerians to support any policy of the federal government that would impact positively on vulnerable citizens. Speaking after Eid-el-Fitr in Yola alongside Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri of Adamawa State, Atiku Abubakar said he is not in total support of many policies of the Tinubu administration, but that he will back any policy that will bring succor to the vulnerable.
It's most unfortunate, but the only way we can overcome this is to work hard and also to support government policies that are designed actually to alleviate, the sufferings of, the poor people, particularly the common man we call in Nigeria. Basically, policies that will empower, the ordinary person to be self-sustaining.
Meanwhile, Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri has called on Muslim faithful across the country to sustain the lessons of sacrifice, discipline and love learned during the period of Ramadan.
We are grateful to Almighty Allah for allowing us through His mercy to observe one of our pillars, the 5 pillars of Islam. And with this, I congratulate all Muslims across the world, particularly Nigeria, and in particular to urge us to live a life of moderation as enjoyed by Islam, through helping the needy and ensuring that we coexist and respect one another.
And to politics, a governorship aspirant in Ondo State, Jimmy Odimayo, says he remains the best material for the state in the coming election. Mr. Odimayo spoke at a meeting with members of the State Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress at a press briefing at the Nigerian Union of Journalists Press Center in Akure. Senior reporter Yodeji Moradeyo reports.
I'm telling you, having me as your governor.
Jimmy Odimayo is one of the 16 governorship aspirants jostling for the ticket of the All Progressives Congress APC in Ondo State. Odimayo was at the APC Secretariat in Akure to meet with members of the State Working Committee of the party. The APC governorship Ofu, who was received by the state chairman of the party, Ade Adetimeyin, said he remains the best man for the plum job. Odimayo said his experience in the private sector will be brought to bear on governance if he is elected as governor.
I've been exposed to various activities in politics. As you know, I am a current member of House of Representatives. Before that, I was appointed by our late governor as member of Osute Council. So all this to me and to yourself too, you know, qualify me to run for this position.
All we need from you is cooperation. You must cooperate with the party, and the party will cooperate with you. I know we, under the State Working Committee, in collaboration with the National, we are going to give you free and fair primary.
He said he will industrialize the state and focus on empowerment of youth and women.
My government will change it and we bring Ondo State to 80% mechanization. I am going to engage technology in Amateku to make sure that crime is detected ahead of time.
Omoba Jimmy Odimayo is optimistic that he will emerge victorious at the APC primary election later in the month. Ayodeji Moradeyo, TVC News, Akure.
And let's take a short break. When we return, it will be time to speak with our guest of the day, Omoyi Edogiawere, on CBN's regulatory initiatives and Naira appreciation. Stay with politics. And welcome back, everyone. The appreciation of the Naira against the dollar in the last few weeks has sparked some level of hope and confidence in the CBN. But can this be sustained? What does this mean for the nation's economy? Now, to help us make sense of it all, I am now being joined by Omoyi Edogiawere. He's a startup business lawyer and a financial analyst. He joins us in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So, for a lot of Nigerians, this is good news. As we've seen the Naira appreciate in the past 3 weeks, we've seen that appreciation at about 28%. There was a time where it was almost 2,000 Naira. It dropped to about 1,400 thereabout, and now, you know, very close to about 1,200. What is responsible for this?
Well, multiple factors, but we must give credit to the central bank governor and his team for being a bit ingenious. And I said it here a couple of months back when they came on board. I said the leadership must now look at some measure of fiscal engineering. Doing the same thing and expecting a different result, it just means insanity, right? So I like the fact that they've looked at the factors and applied some level of ingenuity to resolving the issues. But what I would commend the CBN governor for is his approach to the issues. Rather than a fire brigade approach, he took a multifaceted approach, addressing the immediate needs and addressing the structural defects. So more like, let's look at the root cause, no band-aid effect, right? That's raised a lot of criticisms. Of course, people are impatient. Of course, people are feeling the brunt. And everybody wanted some immediate end to the issues. But I like the fact that he stuck to his gun and said, look, there's no immediate end in sight. And the issues are structural, right? And are deep-rooted. And you have to address those issues. But what has happened in the immediate? A couple of things have been done. The backlog, FS backlog owed to companies over 7 billion have been cleared. And I like the report the CBN issued when they were announcing that the legitimate claims have been paid. What this tells you is that there were claims that are illegitimate. There were claims that are not tidy. And that speaks to a better approach, a structured approach to issues that, hey, we ain't going to just run into it. We've got to address it decisively, right? And so bringing in Deloitte to come and audit these loans. Let's know those who really should be paid and those who are just making demands because they probably previously had access, right? And this is the only way we can go. Because if we continue to do things the way they were being done before, we will end up being in a bigger mess. So addressing those issues, he must be commended. And then you look at, before he came on board, right, they had unified the windows, right, open up, so let the Naira float. And really, CBN's, the role of the Apex Bank, I think for a very long time, they've played in the scene rather than regulating the scene.
I was just going to ask you if,
right?
if we're now saying how, I mean, if the CBN has reevaluated its policies in terms of its regulation.
Of course. So it's now going back to look at my primary role as the Apex banker is to regulate and not to play in the scene, right? And not to serve as a henchman, so to speak, for want of better language, for other active players, right? And I think that it is in rescinding his steps, right, and going back to that position as a regulator that has empowered CBN a lot more to now really look at the banks and say, hey, guys, what are you doing, right? The notice on the 31st of December asking them, look, you know what, reduce your FX liquidity exposures to 20%, right? Compelled the banks to push out over 7 billion FX, which they have been keeping, right? And these are all the things that have now come into the market. Already the window is open, right? There are no two rates. So you don't have people who are shopping for a CBN rate to now go to the parallel market to sell at a higher rate. So that was maintained and actively implemented. And then you now have intentional situation. And, you know, you must also look at the fact that why has the Naira continued to weaken, right? What are the indices that have led us to where we are? If you don't look at it, there's an adage that says if you don't know where it ends the EBIT, you probably will not know where it stops, right? It's important for our regulators to look. And I think that's what one of the things Cardoso has done, to say, look, how did we get here? I remember when he spoke to the National Assembly, right? I'm not holding brief for him, right? Because there are few knocks I have. But the fact is, he looked at our spending, both on BTAs, education, healthcare, over $96 billion. And you are talking of an economy that is seriously lagging behind in production. So our production index is weak. So we're not exporting as we should. And what we now have is that what we ideally should keep, we are converting to FX and investing in other economies. Another key decision that must be commended is insisting that, look, petroleum exploration companies must keep their 50% of their revenue in Nigeria for 90 days. How do you make money from my country and you export?
And it's one of the things that we've seen over and over again, whether it's the IOCs or the telecoms companies who don't keep their they don't keep their income here.
No,
it's exported out of the country, and that is also detrimental to our economy. But I also wanted to ask, when you look at all of these gains that we've made, are we out of the woods yet?
No.
Are we in the clear?
No. Well, we're on our way, but we're not in the clear. So there's still a lot to be done, and we've got to sustain what has been done. And I like the fact that the regulators, the Apex Bank, is playing his role as a regulator and is being clearly apolitical, clearly technical in the performance of its responsibilities and its obligation to the economy and to the nation in general. And so, sustainability of the measures, adequate oversight. You see, if you have a regulator that cannot adequately checkmate our financial institutions, the challenge you have would be that they will continue to have issues like this spring up, right? I was excited when I was reading the papers a couple of days ago, and I saw that Gwadabe, the BDC chairman, was writing the CBN governor and said, look, reduce the rate you're selling to us, because what we are buying for, we can't even sell for that, right? And ensuring that, so it looked as if, there was no hope. How do you hit these people? These people will fight you back. But when you sustain a position and you make it very clear, you find that people either fall in line or they leave the scene. And so it is important for CBN to sustain that position. Today, yesterday or so, they sold at 1,110 naira. With instruction to the BDCs not to sell more than 1.5% above what they have bought, right? Now, how do you monitor that? Working with law enforcement. Let's not go to Binance and checkmating illicit inflows into this country.
Again,
right?
It's something that I was going to ask you. We'll get to the issue of Binance, but when you talked about the Gwadabe reaching out to the CBN governor, isn't it also a matter of he that must come to equity must come with clean hands? That there is probably there is transparency in the system, and they say, look, if we see the transparency, then perhaps we'll work with him.
That's what Cardoso has done. What all Cardoso has tried to do, right? Again, I say I'm not holding brief, but all I can see from the chipsets is trying to make the system that has hitherto been shrouded in so much fogginess, for want of better language, and get it crystal clear, right? Clear out all the fogs and let people see transparency. Make rules, stick to those rules, and explain the rules. And ensure that the rules are not panic-centered, but are long-term, right? So in an economy like ours, with the unique challenges we have, you can't have a regulator that panders to every loud panic. But you need a regulator that thinks things through and stays on course. And that's what CBN has got to do, right? Working closely with the coordinating minister of the economy, I do hope that there is a synergy, right? And you see, the economy is not what you politicize, because everybody bears the brunt. Everybody bears the brunt, and it's like throwing a stone in a market square. You don't know who is going to hit.
Have you seen that synergy? You just talked about in terms of the fiscal and monetary policies. I think perhaps maybe for the first time, we're having a CBN governor that speaks more than the Minister of Finance. He rarely speaks. He speaks when he needs to. The last time we heard him speak was when he was at LBS talking about how talking about the ways and means which has now been paid, and that was the last time he also spoke. But when you look at the body language and how the economy is going, do you think that there is some sort of synergy in terms of the fiscal and monetary policy?
So I'll throw that question back to you, even though you are the one asking questions that I am answering. Have you seen or noticed friction? Because the first thing to understand if there's a synergy is divergent communication. I haven't seen it. As far as the economy is concerned, right? You don't hear CBN saying one thing and the minister insinuating another thing. So which means that in law, there's something we call consensus ad idem. There's a meeting of minds, right? And really, it's not about whether the minister is coming now to speak. What's happening behind the scenes? Talk is cheap. You can speak for all you care. If people don't feel the impact, grant all the press conferences. So imagine if the CBN governor was was calling a press conference today to explain to Nigerians that, oh, Eid Mubarak, but dollar is 3,000. We're still working to bring it down.
Because I asked because even with the previous administration, we see many times where the Minister of Finance will say, I was not aware.
That's why I said, have you seen friction?
Policy, especially with the Naira redesign, where she came out and said, look, no one told me that was going to happen.
That's why I asked you, have you seen friction? Have you seen mixed signals? Have you seen different communication, right? And the first sign of a coordinated team is when they speak one language, right? If you get mixed signals or different people saying different things, it's a sign that they don't have their house in order, right? Cardozo has come out very clearly with his policies, has followed through to them, and we have not seen political interference. We have not seen any counter communication from the coordinating minister of the economy or even any minister or any member of government, right? Which means bring a technocrat. Give him the responsibility. Let him do it. Once he has shown that he knows what he's doing, allow him do what he needs to do. Let him report back to you and explain if there are issues, but let him do his job. So what we have is a CBN governor who is being allowed to do his job. How long that will be, time will tell.
We're also in the time of so many, what people now call social media economists. A lot of people who seem to think that they understand the economy. And some Nigerians are also worried in this regard as to whether are we back to where we used to be with the previous CBN governor who was intervening. Some people say, look, is the CBN intervening? Or is the value of the Naira being determined by market forces?
So what you have today is that with the BDC's request to CBN, is showing that market forces are determining the value of the Naira. Now, like I said, we are far from the end of the end of the tunnel, right? But one of the things that we've seen is a concerted approach to getting there, right? MPR rates, for instance, have not been reduced because the approach is still to look at curbing inflation, right? But you're trying to strengthen the Naira. One of the things that CBN does not also want to do is to flood the Naira to buy dollars, right? Or whatever be the case. The fact is, what you're seeing today with one single window is the market determining the value. What the CBN is doing or appears to be doing is addressing those market forces in order to prevent them from skyrocketing the Naira.
So it is not intervention?
No, so it is an intervention, but more of a structural approach to addressing the issues decisively. Right? Because if you continue to... I do not like band-aid effects. They don't ever work. Address the root cause of the issue and treat it once and for all. And I think that that's the approach that the CBN governor has started to take. But you see, the work of strengthening the Naira goes beyond CBN. Our biggest challenge is FX inflow. And until we improve indigenous production for exportation, we cannot attract FX. And if you cannot attract FX, you will continue to have a situation where the Naira will never really achieve its fullest potential.
I think that was one of the messages from the president recently when he was talking about buy made in Nigerian products. But some people are sort of, confused when it comes to buying made in Nigerian products, because sometimes we don't even make these products in the country. So it means that if you say let's buy, which of them, because it is not available. The ones that are available, some people will say it is substandard. What do we do? What will it take to get to that place where, at least to a large extent, we are not importing all that we use?
So you see, the challenge we've had with our exportation, the quagmire around exportation, is a long-standing problem that we've allowed to fester. And it's just like this table, right? if I take a little pin and just keep poking this table, it looks insignificant. But if I do it consistently for 1 year, it digs a hole. And before you know it, it creates a crack. And before you know it, the entire table has to be rechanged. And that's what has happened to our economy, our export economy. We became very comfortable with importation. And then the indices of, local indices of production, what are the things that you use to gauge production locally, continued to suffer because we were not focused on producing, we were focused on importing. And then power, infrastructure, access to credit. People were borrowing from the banks to import because it was safer. Import quickly, sell, than borrow, manufacture. You have power challenges, you have regulatory challenges, you have a market doubt, and then you're struggling to even sell and pay back. And then what happens? The banks come and they take over your machines and they sell over and over again. I'm a lawyer, I've seen a lot of that, right? But it's easier for you to borrow. They give you a 90-day window or 180-day window. You bring in, you sell off. We're consuming. We're 200 and something million Nigerians consuming. Now, an example of a surface approach is to say, you know what, let's tighten the belt on funds for such importation. Did it work? It didn't work. The focus should be to incentivize local production. Power is one of the biggest challenges that we've had. If you fix power, now, when you even look at a lot of the foreign companies that are leaving, one of their biggest challenges is power. So what are they doing? They are going to locations and regions where they have power to produce and again now import. Because for them, they can navigate the importation quagmire and bring it into Nigeria. But they cannot navigate the challenges they face producing locally. So if we don't fix local production, our ability to attract FX will continue to be limited to government fiscal policies and Eurobonds and the likes and all those things and oil. But remember, oil has a lifespan. I said this at the beginning of the year when we discussed the budget. And I said it, that look, I want to see non-oil exports give oil a run for their money. And if the Tinubu administration will get its scorecard in a good place, where history will be forever grateful to them, then attention must be paid to non-oil exports. Our agri sector must be revived. Look, if you look at other countries today, a lot of them are moving from crude oil to ethanol. One of the byproducts of cassava is ethanol. Nigeria produces, well, one of the largest producers of cassava in the world. Are we incentivizing cassava production for exports? But you see, there's also a danger. If government focuses too much and everybody's attention is on exports, then indigenous production, indigenous consumption becomes a problem. So we also have to balance it to ensure that Gari does not become too expensive because we are preparing for export. But we have arable land, right? Fix that. And I have always said something. I believe in picking one thing and doing it well, as against doing so many things. Look for one key product. Invest heavily in it. Support people in that space. Boost it, and then export. How did Singapore get to where they got, right?
So I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to take a break because for a lot of Nigerians, probably enjoying the conversation, but for them it's just like, when you guys are done with this, your grammar, tell us where we can go back to buying rice for 30,000 naira, a bag of rice for 30,000 naira. So we're going to go back and then go on break, and when we return, we'll look at all of that and how soon it is going to happen. So let's take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV Station of the Year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Our planet, our home, threatened by man's activities with fears of mass extinction on the rise. On Green Angle, we examine the issues that affect our environment, seek solutions to put us on track to secure and restore a cleaner and greener world for generations to come.
Thanks for staying with us on politics tonight. We're looking at the CBN regulatory initiatives and the appreciation of the Naira. We've been speaking with a startup business lawyer and financial analyst, Omoyi Dugiare. Thanks for staying with us.
Thank you for having me.
So I was saying earlier that, look, Nigerians just want to go back to buying commodities for as low as they used to. If not low, at least let's just go back to what it was before, because now it is quite high. We see how the exchange rate has reduced, but it has not really taken effect, as much on food prices. But the federal government has urged Nigerians to expect a stronger Naira. They say that will reflect on a significant drop in commodity prices as early as first quarter of 2025. Are you optimistic, and what will it take?
Discipline, focus, and the political will. Remember I said earlier that the issue of strengthening the Naira and its effect on the economy goes beyond CBN. So there are market forces, right? There are also, the patriotism also comes to play, right? And I think that we will get to a stage where the economists, right? The regulators, government will do all that it should do. Then it will be left for you and I, the citizens, to now play our part.
And what is that part?
One of which is ensuring that we are patriotic. And so one of the things that we saw in the last 3 months, 2 to 3 months, is a dangerous price conflagration and everybody hiding behind the dollar. Even the ones that are clearly unjustifiable. Right.
And we also saw people who were hoarding food, and we saw how different agencies, security agencies, going to these warehouses to keep them open.
Exactly, right? So the Nigerian market, the average Nigerian businessman is largely a price speculator. If the Minister of Petroleum comes out today and says, oh, we're looking at possibly adding a few 10 nairas to petrol, go out the next day, you see all the filling stations will be shut. Why? They are speculating. They want to make profits on what they have bought on old stock. And that's the average body language. So how will you address that? The political will, to ensure that you're able to get people to do what they should do and not what they want to do. But you see, in leadership and in government, political will can be a double-edged sword. If those who are seeking to implement the policies of government do not show it in their actions. So government internal administration and policies must reflect that level of patriotism. So I want to see more government functionaries patronize made in Nigeria goods. I want to see government trainings and programs happen in Nigeria. I want to see them travel to Ebonyi, travel to Obudu, right? Even though I think Obudu may not be what it used to be, right? But I want to see government invest locally. I want to see governors today ride made in Nigeria official cars. If you make that level of investment in local production, you are incentivizing patriotism by doing it, and you're leading the way. Now, you must also know that what has made everybody tilt towards this foreign craze, for want of better language, is quality. Quality assurance has been a major problem, right? So what are the factors that have made indigenous producers continue to fall short of these quality expectations? Address those issues. And this is where I expect the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, Standard Organization of Nigeria, and other agencies are so required to work closely to bridge this quality. And there are brands, local brands, that are doing phenomenally well, right? I'm an entrepreneur as much as I'm a lawyer. And one of the things that I see in interacting with entrepreneurs, I service startups. And so I work with a lot of businesses, both growing and full-fledged. And one of the things I have seen is that low appetite for standardization, for quality. And I always say,
is there enough regulation? Because we have a lot of regulation.
Is it something? It's not something that we really can regulate. It's something. It's a mindset. It's a mindset.
Can it not be enforced? Because we have the Standard Organization of Nigeria. There's also NAFDAC for foods and drugs and all. But Standard Organization of Nigeria is general, and so can that not be enforced, even where the mindset is absent?
So, two things. The workforce, the civil service and the public workforce must now even understand global best practice and then insist on those measures. For instance, if you say to NAFDAC, that product you approved 3 years ago, when was the last time you checked their production? Right? Because, listen, I can give you the very best version of this because I want you to approve. Whether this is what I'm going to be selling to the end users is a different kettle of fish. So we need to now look at those in this. But you see, I think the work is more for the National Orientation Agency, if we have one, because I don't see them. We must begin to reorientate and change the way we reason, right? Look at the issue of different bands of power and, the increase in power units. I like air conditioning a lot. I'm having to now switch off and switch on intermittently, right? Because of power consumption rates. But here's the thing. Is NEC following closely with the distribution companies to ensure that they are not ripping people off?
That these areas are actually getting the hours that you have said they will get.
And that the categorization is proper in the circumstance, right? Because what you're going to have is if people do not see that value, then you won't get them to align. And so it's the same thing across board.
All right, so let's get back to the value of the naira to the dollar. It's dropping. We're seeing in an appreciation of the naira, but how significant will that drop be? Some have said perhaps maybe we'll go back to the 700 naira it was before, 750. Some people are expecting much more. Maybe it drops to maybe 500, 600. Some have said maybe 900. But what do you see?
So we forget that we were once at a time when dollar was 150 naira.
Can we get back there?
It just takes intentional effort. If we boost exports and we reduce imports, you will see it happen. Listen. Imagine Nigeria bringing in revenue just the way oil brings in revenue. And remember that a lot of our revenue from oil is cut at source to service debts, to service foreign obligations and all that. And then you see what has been happening before the Cardozo policy came in. They transport 100% of their profits out immediately. So nothing even stays, nothing is domiciled until we insisted that, okay, 50% must stay for 90 days, give us a 90-day window to give some buffer, right? We've seen our foreign reserves shoot up to 34 billion at the end of March. Now, the only way the Naira can become so strong is if we give oil a run for its revenue. So if you see importation go out, FX coming in that number, there's no way. So it's really, it's as simple as ABC. Until we start exporting, we cannot expect the Naira to come down to where it used to be. But if we start exporting, it will even go way lower because we will have more dollars than we need. Remember, what is inflation? Too much money looking for few goods. As far as Naira is concerned, Naira is weak because a lot of Naira is looking for little dollar. So if you have so much dollar, then you don't need too much Naira to look for it. What we've seen is a depletion of our reserves for exports, for imports, whether direct product import or human tourism, healthcare, and all these things. Now, if we begin to demystify those factors, and that's why I said, look, it's beyond CBN. Fix our road network. If we have arable roads, people will start looking at having vacations locally. If you fix the issue of security, there are places in this country that are made for folklore. What really, I've traveled far and wide, right? What really is there? Cold. You have freezing, you know, I know that, right?
Well, we do not have snow, yeah, so...
You know, but the point is, fix this country. And you find that not many people have that appetite for foreign travel. Fix healthcare. Our healthcare indices is still at a very low ebb. Improve. Listen, if you go abroad, you would find that Nigerian human resource capital is the fulcrum upon which many institutions abroad stand. Our talents are everywhere. In fact, the level of human export in the tech and innovation ecosystem is a lot. That's my field.
And even the health.
And then you look at health. It's a lot. Fix the system, incentivize them by paying them salaries that are good enough. And then you find that many people will stay. You find that this drain will reduce because a lot of them are not necessarily very happy. Fix public education. I always say, look, Nigeria's biggest challenge is the failure of a social safety net. And what really forms that social safety net? Education, healthcare, housing. If you fix, I went to a public school, right? And it was the best at the time. But I'm almost going to say that I would never send any of my children there. It shouldn't be that way, right? Fix public schools. When you fix public education, you make education accessible. Invest heavily in public education. Invest heavily in our institutions. And then you see, also, one of the problems we have, especially in the tertiary space, is that the level of investment that should go into education is not getting to the source. And so there is just a cosmetic effect. But when you fix that, fix healthcare, people should be able to go into the hospital to get qualitative healthcare. Power is a key factor. There's light to power the machines, to power the equipment. Then there's housing. Once people know that in 35 years of my service, I can afford a 2-bedroom bungalow, a 3-bedroom bungalow. Listen, the corruption that kills this country is the corruption of greed. Is the corruption of need, which is the corruption necessitated by these social safety nets being unavailable. That of greed that we see, 30 billion, 50 billion, 100 billion, really, is a microcosm of the corruption in the ministry, the corruption at the checkpoints, the corruption in certain places, the corruption of survival, because there is no social safety net. When you fix these things, you incentivize the local economy, you incentivize the country, and you reduce that appetite for foreign travel.
But what does this also say about governance at the state level? Because even with the foreign exchange that we saw, some governors were also being accused of being part of that problem, where after allocation or and then with the increase in allocation because of removal of petrol subsidy, they had more money to convert to dollars. I mean, there was that accusation, allegations against some governors. So what does that also say about governance at that level?
So you see, the problem we have is that of regulation. In a sane climate, if you convert 1 billion naira to dollars, it will ring a bell somewhere. And there's some level of accountability should be demanded. But we sit here and we see these things happen like nothing has happened. And until regulators step up, right, until we put in place systems that checkmate these things, they will continue to happen. And you see, like I said, it's not just CBN to do. Who are those implementing? Are the foot soldiers in the same place? These monies that are released to these governors are released to banks. The banks owe an accountability burden to the regulator. Some of these things are easy to be flagged. So that's a factor that should be addressed. But you see, the main failure here is the failure of our local government system. Do you know your local government chairman? Do you know your councillor? These are supposed to be the people who should bring democracy to your doorstep. It's literally non-existent. Average local government chairman today is in the pocket of his governor, and so does the bidding of the governor. Meanwhile, it was supposed to be a level of government that was independent, and that's why you had state independent electoral commissions to hold elections. In some states today, they don't even hold elections. You have executive secretaries, caretaker chairmen, sole administrators, or whatever the governors choose to call. Every month, right? I know Okonjo-Iweala started it. They release how much they have shared monthly. It's in the papers. The monies that go to the local government, who holds them accountable? How is that money disbursed? How is it shared? How is it allocated? Right? Because democracy should come. So everybody is calling Tinubu, 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 Tinubu. Who is calling their local government chairman? Do they even know their chairman? The pothole in front of your house, you see it, you feel bad, you call the president. You have a
monies
councillor.
have been sent in terms, in form of allocation to your governor to take care of you.
To your governor, to your local government,
and the local government to take care of you. So it should no longer, the focus should no longer be at the center. But I also wanted to ask you, even as we wind down.
But the center has a responsibility.
Absolutely.
The center has a responsibility to rein everyone in.
We see how, we've seen the increase in commodity price. I just want to go back there. We've also seen now that the appreciation of the naira. How soon? Some prices have dropped significantly, but some others have just stayed where they are. In fact, some have even increased. And you're wondering what's going on. How soon should we begin to see that drop in prices?
So we expect that within the next 1 month. So a lot of these things are importation-based. So the average businessman will tell you, I have imported products to last me 6 months at this price. So until I sell off, I cannot change. And really, it's very difficult to gauge and confirm that. And that's why I tell you, that's where patriotism comes in, right? But for the main things, the mainstay for us, which is really, the people watching on TV want to know when rice will be cheaper, right? when gari,
Absolutely.
when vegetable, tomato, and all that. These things should be able to come down within the next 2 to 3 weeks because that cost should have come down. Now, what are the costs? The transportation costs, the logistics supply chain, right? And all these things should have come down. Now, if it's for government's duty, that's why I said a price standardization approach is very important. And I've always said this. This will be like 10 times I'm saying this on TV. Government has got to work closely. Now, one of the most regulated industries is the informal sector. They're very regulated. If they increase the cost of rice in this place, by the time you get to the market down the road, same has been done. They have their way of passing that information. Work with their leaders, right, to push these prices down. And then patriotism, really, it comes down to
we do have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your analysis. Always a pleasure. Omori Yedugare, startup business lawyer and financial analyst. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And that marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight, but the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on X at TVC News NG. We're also on Instagram at TVC News NG and on Facebook as well. On YouTube, we're live at TVC News Nigeria. Thanks for watching. I am Precious Amayu.
Ini. Hi guys. Ini, your skin is really glowing. What beauty soap do you use?
It's glowing because it's healthy. I use a soap that keeps my skin soft and protected from germs.
But Ini, the beauty soaps I know don't give germ protection.
Dettol Skincare does.
It combines Dettol's protection with argan oil to protect my skin. Gives me 2 times moisturization with a beautiful fragrance. Beautiful skin is germ-free skin.
Here's what a good hair day looks like and feels like. With the new Lush Hair Care range. Made with a cocktail of nature's finest oils. With hibiscus oil for hair growth, rooibos oil to eliminate frizz, amla oil to prevent hair breakage. To give your hair life and bounce. So go ahead and be confident.
Stunning, flawless, beautiful.
You deserve a soft life, so does your hair. Lush Hair. Be beautiful.
We're live from the open market for Epic 10X Challenge.
My people, today now.
Today, I will show you how the power of new Epic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible. Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively.
But Epic is thicker and sticks better,
which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow. You can now see that Epic is better than bleach.
The Inspector General of Police has met with senior officers to review the state of security.
We are continuing our coverage of the arrest of Godwin Emefiele.
The Senate has summoned the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria to properly brief the Senate regarding the state of the economy.
President Bola Tinubu has announced the total removal of fuel subsidy.
The fresh subsidy is gone. What I will never take is threat.
Let's now bring you more development from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, where an explosion has taken place. Tell us about this incident.
TVC News. First with breaking news.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, where the black gold continues to flow and fuel Africa's largest economy, where the line between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Oil, gas, politics, development, and community issues all are highly valuable commodities in the Niger Delta. How do they combine, and how can they work together to spawn a new era in the Niger Delta? Join award-winning ace broadcaster Mahmoud Felix Akuga on TVC News every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. and Saturdays at 3:30 p.m. as he probes deep to analyze issues in the region from angles never before explored. For sponsorship and participation, call us on 080-584-75898 or 080-205-40134 inside the Niger Delta with Mahmoud Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up. At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.
After 2 months of repairs, the Lekki Conservation Centre is back and bustling with life. Home to a diverse array of plants and animals, this Lagos heritage site plays a vital role in preserving the region's ecosystem. And let's not forget about the star attraction, the longest canopy walkway in Africa, offering the breathtaking 360-degree views from above the treetops. This and more will be our focus in this week's edition of Green Angle. Welcome.
Yes,
I am Esther Makwariola. And before we begin, let's bring you updates from the world of environment. The event was graced by environmental conservationists, public officials and students from public schools, all gathering to witness the culmination of the program.
We have mobilized young people, old people.
The environmental program is a vital advocacy initiative aimed at fostering environmental sustainability awareness through educational programs and practical workshops within schools.
Children are very strong influencers. They're subliminal, they're surreptitious, but yet they're very, very powerful. So when you have a teacher who has taken up the vision to charge children about how to manage waste, and not only manage but how to repurpose, how to recycle, how to upscale, and how to reuse, in terms of resource efficiency, efficiently use waste as resource, then you know that the sky is the limit for us in Lagos.
Every school should be an eco school. I mean, why not? Because it teaches the student how to, adapt to the challenges around particularly pollution and of course climate change. It helps them to also, become global leaders, even while acting locally. They are able to solve their immediate problems. And there's a slogan that says, their generation is going to end poverty, climate change, and hunger.
23 schools in Lagos and Ogun states actively engaged in practical projects focusing on sustainable gardening, upcycling, and recycling, thus igniting a passion for climate action.
Even our project too, it's a teamwork. We're not the only one but I brought up the idea, the hard work, everything. I'm the one pushing. And I'm glad we got to where we are now, and we won't stop. We're going to keep doing greater things with the plastics.
Many things that we take as ways that are not useful are really useful for us. That it makes me to look